Hi, Tita. I'm good. Thank you. What about yourself?
I'm good too. So, firstly, I would like to thank you for joining us today. We're really happy to have you. So I'll just ask you a few questions with respect to learning and development. So, why do
Sure.
you think learning and development is important for organizations?
That's a that's a very, I would say, this is, one question which will require a very detailed answer, uh, according to my perspective. See, what happens is that organizations, they obviously, there is a lot of, churn out which happens in organizations, and, there are different people who join in from different industries, different backgrounds. First of all, it is really important for these people to be aligned to the organization's culture,
Mhm.
right? Because without alignment of the culture of these employees, an organization cannot, build a great mission, vision, and value statement.
Okay.
Um, if the organization, wants all of its resources to be focused on only one goal, then it is really important for all the employees to be aligned to the organization's mission, vision, and its culture.
Okay.
So that is the first statement I would like to make. And there is no other, and when I say learning and development, it basically, includes quite a few other responsibilities also, because the people who generally take care of learning and development in organizations, those get involved in, various other initiatives like talent management, like, employee engagement, and, other initiatives related to culture. So, and it, like I said, it all, starts with the culture first, and there is no other, party other than, the talent management and the L&D teams who can actually, do it really well, in my sense, because these are the people who are actually on both the sides. They take care of not only the business aspect of learning, but at the same time, they are also very closely connected to the employees. So that is the first statement, to align the employees to the organization's culture. Secondly, I think any organization, will look at its employees performing at an optimum level.
Mhm.
Um, so when you mention performance, so if someone's performance or an individual's or a team's performance is going down, then who is going to actually take care of the performance, of the employees? It is obviously going to be, there has to be some team, or, some, or a group of individuals, or someone, who is actually responsible to look at very closely what are some of the performance gaps and performance issues, and, do some sort of a corrective planning and corrective actioning on those performance issues. Once again, because the learning and development, teams typically, they talk to both business as well as people. They're like, that interface between the employees and the organization, that they are actually best placed to solve for any performance related issues, right? And obviously, third thing is why we need learning and development, in any organization, is because you got to have, someone apart from the HR team to become voice of the employee. See, what happens is, most of the times, whenever there is a performance issue, or whenever, there is another, anything, which is sort of impacting the employee's performance or their mindset towards the, ways of working, or the of the organization, they somehow now are not able to, open up to their line managers, or even, to the HR. And in these kind of cases, learning and development, they provide that sort of support to both, the operations team as well as the, HR team, to become, that voice of the employees, that, okay, we are, also here to listen, and to, hear out what exactly is that you need in terms of, your learning, your own development, and, anything which could, enhance your performance at work, not only in terms of your skill, but also in terms of the mindset. So I think, these are some of the things which are very, very critical to the performance of people. It is not just, training, which is which is critical, but also, having those mindset and attitude conversations also is very, very important, which can only, happen if you have someone specialized in this field to work with the employees. And learning and development personnel, they are typically, trained and coached to have these kind of conversations, which typically business and the HR teams can't have. So, which is why, for all of these reasons that I mentioned, you got to, have a learning and development team in the organizations who can, who can become voice of the employees, who can, ensure that the employees are thinking what the organization is thinking. And at the same time, work on their performance in a very, very streamlined and targeted way. Yeah.
Okay. So the next question I would like to ask you is, does learning and development impact the bottom line of businesses?
Oh, of course, definitely. I mean, anyone who thinks that learning and development team is, is just a team which is there to do trainings within the organization, I think those people are highly mistaken. And I can, quote examples after examples, not only, from my professional experience, but also, looking at, my peers in different organizations, who have actually hit the bottom line of business in terms of dollar value and revenue through learning interventions, right? So learning and development functions, they are traditionally counted under support functions. I mean, if you make a list of what are some of the support functions in organizations, then L&D, happens to be one of those functions which come under support functions. And thus, they are, I think, somehow considered to be a budget sucking functions rather than, profit generating functions, right? So this is, one mentality, I think, which has sort of, got stuck with training. So that, if you need soft skills training, if you need communication training, then, just call the L&D department, they will do the training and that's about it. Yes. But I think the potential is still untapped. And again, I'm saying it with my personal experience that even the L&D personnel, they have not, really tapped their own potential, the way, they can turn around learning projects and, really hit the bottom line. And I can, give you an example that, let's say, if we have a product-based organization, which is into manufacturing of different, products and tools, and then, selling it out, to consumers. If that kind of organization is trying to, strengthen its sales capability, right? For example, that the sales force, the salespeople, they are not adequately utilized, or they are not really, doing that kind of, sales, which can actually happen, which is the market potential. Yes. That they are, consistently getting that sort of a feedback from the teams that people are not very proactive in terms of, reaching out to the potential, potential clients, or they are not, reaching out to potential business. Then clearly, something is wrong somewhere, right? If the organization, can be at, let's say, at an X level in terms of its revenue and profitability, and if it is, still sitting at an A level, there's very clearly, there's a huge gap here. So the business volume is projected to be at a certain number for a certain business quarter, but the challenges are that the managers, they share feedback that their sales team, that the numbers just, don't move even after, sharing multiple feedback. Sales team are in the field for so long that they have forgotten the virtues of putting in more effort. This is also, one issue that we face, that people are so experienced that they stop, putting in effort altogether. Yeah. They think, that they become cash cows, that they will keep on, putting in just, 1% of the effort, and they will keep on, getting the same kind of business from the potential clients. So, all of these challenges happen, not just, in the case that I'm mentioning, which is a product-based organization, but, in any organization that can happen. So what do we do in this case? Very clearly, the problem is not with the skill level of the people or their independence to do something. The issue here is the mindset. How do make people come out of the comfort zone? How do you make them do more? How do you make them how do you make them, do 1% better every day, which sort of, adds to the bottom line of the business, right? So traditionally people would say, do some sort of a sales training. That's the, normal response, or,
Yes.
motivate them for sales. Motivation sessions happen a lot in sales driven organizations, right? But my question is, what sort of ROI, actually come out of these motivational sales training, or the kind of incentives that you give to people per se? I mean, yes, money really matters, but if you go through human psychology theories, incentives, external incentives and external incentives like money, or giving them some gift, they have their own limitations. They don't work always.
Yeah.
Because the moment you take out the incentive, the willingness to do more goes with that.
Yeah.
So if you were to ask a seasoned L&D professional that what should be done in this scenario, then the L&D professional should suggest that come out of the traditional solutions and look at a structured way of improving the performance, right? So typically how I would approach this situation is, I will make a case out of this entire situation. I will do some sort of data gathering first of all, and I will see that exactly where the people are in terms of their performance. The L&D representative should suggest a team analysis to understand the performance issues related to skill, their competence, their intentions, or maybe other behavioral factors which are obstacles in their performance. And whatever is the root cause, then it should be tried and solved through a mix of training, coaching, mentoring, some sort of self-paced learning, some sort of exposure to how other organizations are solving the similar problem. So and this should happen over a period of time, right? A couple of days of sales training program does not really improve performance, because that is not really hand holding. That is just exposing people to certain techniques, and then expecting them to remember those techniques and apply those techniques lifelong till the time they are in the organization. That hardly works. So and this brings to another point that you mentioned, that the bottom line. So without completing these things, or without completing this study, you cannot really impact the bottom line of business. When you don't know where exactly you need to go after 4 or 5 months of learning intervention, when you don't know that where exactly you start from, or what sort of KPI you are targeting. So these are a few things which if considered in any learning approach, then the learning approach definitely is going to hit the bottom line of business. And the case, and this actually works in sales driven organization. It happens in organizations where CSAT as a KPI is important. In some way or the other, if you are able to tap that KPI, and if you are able to do some targeted interventions on that KPI, definitely 100%. I mean, I can guarantee, I mean, if you run a project, which is very, very structured, very, very, focused on the outcome through learning, it is definitely going to hit the bottom line of business. It just, depends on how you are, managing the whole project.
Thank you so much, sir. So is e-learning going to replace the traditional methods of learning and development? What are your inputs on this?
Well, see, COVID-19, has, apart from making us realize quite a few things as a race of human beings, one thing that it has made us realize is that learning through e-learning and virtual methods has its own advantages. So, and had it not been for COVID-19, the whole debate around e-learning versus classroom learning wouldn't have, picked any pace. So
definitely,
what would have taken years to happen, thanks to the virus, has happened in a matter of a few months, which is a quick transition from traditional setup to e-learning platform.
Yes.
But what needs to be debated is if this trend is going to pick pace, and will e-learning, to your question, will e-learning replace the traditional learning methods in organizations? And it is absolutely clear that e-learning is here to stay. It is not going anywhere. In fact, there is going to be many more organizations who are going to wake up to this fact that and I'm talking about traditional organizations, which are which are very, very generational in their nature, like one person led organization, like that banyan tree organizations I'm talking about, who traditionally were not in favor of any tech driven learning. I think those organizations are also going to wake up. So the trend, I think, is going to pick a lot of pace, but I don't agree that e-learning will 100% replace the traditional learning methods. And the reason why I say this with a lot of conviction is that let's look at the advantages of e-learning for a moment. And if I were to make a list, if you just Google e-learning pros and cons, you will see that there are a lot of pros. First of all, the cost, which is the biggest factor that the organizations look at when they are implementing anything. The cost is, the scalability of e-learning is massive. I mean, if you were to do a simple customer service training for a set of 20 people, you'll traditionally hire a trainer, you'll hire a training facility, you'll put people in that for 2 days or 1 day in that session. There's a lot of cost involved in this, of the trainer, of the facility, the people, out of production and everything. Cost is, the one-time implementation cost of e-learning is definitely high, because you got to implement an entire LMS system. If not an LMS system, you got to purchase a platform. But that one-time cost actually becomes almost zero after a certain number of participants, because at a max level, a trainer can handle, let's say, about 20 people, 25 people in one session. And that has a fixed cost. So if you're trying to get the 26th person in the session, you have to, do the same cost again. While in e-learning, if you have developed a curriculum, and if you have implemented, the LMS system, even if you take the 100th or the 1000th person, the cost is still going to be the same.
Yeah.
Right. And then it just, becomes a question of scalability. So the scalability of an e-learning platform is really, really high, which is why I think, a lot of organizations, they create curriculum and then, they put that on the LMS, and there are, some modules that they push through the LMS on a long-term basis. At the same time, e-learning, we all know, can be accessed anywhere. If you have a mobile, it works on a mobile, on a tablet, on a desktop, on a laptop, it works everywhere. So the accessibility, and imagine in COVID-19, when within a few weeks, the entire economy of India, it started working from home. If we did not have any e-learning platform, it would not have been possible. So people, they were accessing these e-learnings from sitting from the comfort of their home. A lot of organizations, startups, also, came around this time. In fact, they were there, but their uptake also happened, really high during COVID-19, because people were exploring learning on the go. So scalability, accessibility, repeatability is really high. If you, especially for product related trainings, if you have to train someone on a product training, you cannot have variance in two different trainers speaking, right? So if let's say if you have to train someone on how to fix a laptop, if two trainers are there in two different batches, there has to be, there will be, because of human factor, there will be some variance. Sometimes one trainer will forget something, or sometimes the style of the trainer is going to be different. So these things actually reflect in the learning of the learner, but this thing gets nullified in an e-learning platform, because you can have one module getting repeated over a period of time, and people, they can, if they didn't learn anything in the first session, they can, look at the session again and again and again till they become an expert. There are different levels which you can get, which you can create on an e-learning platform. So all of these things actually matter a lot. You can spread the learning. Like I said, there are many pros, and I'm just, going on and on. You can stretch a learning over a period of time. If you're in a classroom session, you got to learn there and then. Otherwise, you just miss the train.
Yes.
So, but having said that, there are n number of benefits of an e-learning platform. I think the biggest thing that an e-learning platform misses is the social impact. See, whatever said and done, we are humans, right? We need an environment to actually, how should I put it, to evolve ourselves, right? Imagine, when we were still chimpanzees, and I'm talking about the evolution theory. You agree that humans, they evolved from monkeys and chimpanzees, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So some people debate that actually. So which is why I thought of being on the safer side, asking that question and confirming. So if this evolution wouldn't have actually happened, if we were confined, in a very, very restricted space, because we went out, we went to the jungle, we went to the water, we went up to the tree, we dug the ground. Thus, our evolution happened. So we need an environment to evolve ourselves, our brain, right? Our brain will not evolve simply because, we are sitting in front of a laptop and learning.
Mm-hmm.
That's not who we are, right? That's not in our genes as a race, right? So we cannot turn into robots. We still need people to socialize with, and that socialization, actually matters a lot. And I'll give you an example. What will happen to a baby, who is raised, through robots, and a baby, who is raised through humans. You can imagine the outcome, right? What will happen to that baby after 20 years?
Yes.
Because, I'm a big fan of the Terminator series. So which is why, when I say this, the whole apocalyptic imagery is in front of me, that if all of us, become that e-learning addicts, then this social and the emotional connect is just going to get removed. And that is, I think, the biggest reason why LMS will not overtake learning 100%.
Mm-hmm.
At max, what can happen is that there are going to be hybrid models, which are absolutely okay.
Yes.
So you take, some repetitive component of learning, you put that in an e-learning platform so that, people can, go through that transactional stuff again and again, and mix that with coaching and mentoring and some sort of a peer learning.
Yes.
And that is the best hybrid model that I have seen, working so far, because this is exactly the same thing that we actually work on in my organization. So like I said, it's always not possible to translate classroom learning into e-learning solutions. And that too, without creating an equally supportive ecosystem of learning. In India, we have like only 50% of Indians have got net connectivity. I mean, we are fortunate that we are sitting in front of each other and, are able to talk to each other, see each other via Zoom, all because we have an internet connection. But there are, people who are in different states. And I'm, just not talking about learning and development here. I'm talking about, learning as a broader topic. What will happen to those people, who don't have an internet? Or what will happen to people, who don't have even a smartphone? Only 36% of Indians have got a smartphone. Yes. So there are a lot of questions, a lot of, I would say, open items, because of which 100% replacement of classroom training is not possible. We need a very, very strong IT infrastructure to be in place before we can actually, say that, okay, let's replace all the school learning, college learning, organization learning with e-learning, right?
Yes.
And at the same time, like I said, we are social beings. Our ability to discuss, communicate, role play, collaborate, it all, adds on to our, who we are as humans. So
Yes.
yeah, that's what I think.
Thank you so much, sir. So, what do you think are the prerequisites for conducting a learning and a development project?
So, and that is, one question, which is, very, very interesting, because this is where I come out of the traditional way of um, approaching or handling a learning project, and I mix that with certain other, techniques and methodologies, which have worked in different industries. For example, Six Sigma. Now, Six Sigma or DMAC process, it has worked beautifully in the manufacturing industry.
Mm-hmm.
But we as learning professionals, have we even thought of, implementing learning projects the Six Sigma and the DMAC way? I'm not sure. But I think, we should, because, and, I have done that personally in my organization. I've got projects, learning projects, certified on Six Sigma. So I can, confidently say that it is possible. But what are some of the prerequisites? And we know that, when you run a Six Sigma project, it is very, very data driven, very, very detail oriented. Everything is mapped to a particular model and a process. So, when you run a Six Sigma project in itself, you can be sure that, you are going to improve something, and that improvement eventually is the ROI that organizations look at.
Yes.
So, but what are some of the prerequisites for running this kind of a project? The first prerequisite is data. And when I say data, it basically means KPI.
Yes.
You've got to capture the KPI, which needs to be targeted for the improvement. So in the case that I shared earlier of a sales organization,
yes,
do we know before running a project, do we know that what should be the KPI? What is the sales volume per person, per team, per vertical as a KPI for improvement? Because unless you know this KPI, we don't know that eventually where do you want to be. It is like, hunting in the dark, right?
correct.
So you got to discuss with business leaders the correct KPI before starting the intervention. Check ideally where they should be. How much should they improve? What is the mean deviance from the target, right? How are you going to capture the data? So that first thing which should be very, very clear in your mind is what is the problem statement? What is the data that you're trying to improve? What is the problem that you're trying to solve for?
Yes.
Secondly, who are the people? Because ultimately you are going to, run this project on, on someone. Someone got to, if you come up with a new process, someone got to implement that process. You can't ignore people, right?
Yes.
You can't ignore people from the whole improvement in the project equation. So capture how many people, what are their roles, what do they do, what does their day look like? Know the people, and it is probably the most important factor. If you forget this important aspect, later on it is going to create problems for you in the project, because you will not know that what kind of people that you are dealing with.
Yes.
Then you capture the pre-intervention data points, right? When I say pre-intervention data points, it basically means capture the performance of the people. So you know which KPI now, you know who are the people. Now you got to capture their data. Where are they? Ideally for 1 quarter. Okay, while I'm saying 1 quarter is because if you compare the data of similar person, of same person, quarter by quarter, it gives you a trend of performance. So, you can confidently say later on that, okay, the improvement actually happened because of the intervention that I run. And it was not just a fluke. or a chance incident, right? So any data which is spread across a quarter is considered to be stable. Okay. And then, you turn the data into measurable figures. Sometimes, so, if you're trying to improve CSAT, you got, CSAT percentage. If you got sales numbers, then you got, sales numbers, you got volumes, you got, dollar values. There has to, be some measurable figure. If you don't have a measurable figure, you will not be able to evaluate whether you have improved or not, right?
Yes.
How will you know that you have improved from 2 to 10? Unless you know what the 2 is or what the 10 is, right? Then thereafter, you create a project charter. So in the project charter, you pen down all the details, like what is the timeline that you're proposing, what's the problem statement. You figure out what's going to be the communication plan, that the team members, the key milestones. And this project charter goes to the project sponsor and the stakeholder. You get their approval. You design the intervention. Now the intervention design, should be basis what is the KPI.
Yes.
Right? You cannot use communication techniques in a sales training. I mean, you can, but those are not going to, be very, very targeted, right? So, like I said, it should be a mix of something, some sort of a self-paced training. I mean, whatever is the KPI, whatever is the problem that you have, come up with, the learning intervention design should actually match that. Then you pilot the intervention. There should be a, pilot plan for the intervention, which should be in place. The last thing that you want to do is run a full-scale intervention and it fails. And it does not, reap any benefit or give you any benefit. So whenever you are running an intervention, if it's a detailed intervention, very time-taking one, you got to run it on a pilot, select a pilot group of people, run it on them and see if the project actually went fine or not.
Yeah.
So these are a few prerequisites, like I said, which there are others also, but those are, more related to when you have already started the project. But if you just talk about what exactly you should do before the project, like I said, it is mainly around, the project charter, if you're creating the KPI, the data points, knowing the people and everything.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. So, sir, how do you think we can measure the ROI of a learning and development initiative?
See, ROI, let's first of all understand what is ROI. What does it actually mean?
Yes.
ROI means return on investment. Okay. I mean, it's a very simple term. But investment on what? Is something which we got to understand. Typically, in any learning scenario, it is the investment on the people in terms of the training done, or in terms of, getting them prepared for that better performance. So typically, and I'll, take another example, again, sales-driven example. If you are trying to improve the sales capability of a team, and if you have identified a certain way of improving their performance or their capability, how much money are you going to, put in that improvement process is going to be the cost or the investment. It could be in terms of the learning hours. It could be in terms of the vendor cost. It could be in terms of the cost of being out of production, or eventually it could be a cost of, all of this accumulated together. Because generally, it is going to be a cumulative cost of, all of these factors. Because if you're running a project, you are also, going to look at some sort of a self-paced module, which will have its own investment. You are going to, look at some sort of a vendor training, which will have its own cost. So, there are different costs which get attached to the whole investment bit, which you are, going to put in terms of improving the people. And then again, going back to learning improvement as a project, when you are doing a learning project, if you are doing a pre and post analysis, then you got to, have the data of where exactly people are now versus when they started their learning journey. So if you're doing this project for, let's say, sales individuals or a sales team, you got to have the data ready in your hand that when I ran this intervention a quarter back, their average or their mean sales figure was, or the cumulative sales figure was at an X amount. But now after 3 months, it has reached a Y amount. Okay. So the two components which are there in the formula of ROI is sales volume or the benefit / the investment or the cost multiplied by 100, which is going to give you an ROI. But this is the simple side of it, of looking at an ROI. The trickiest part where most of the people actually fail is isolating the amount of benefit or the amount of sales generated purely because of training. And which is why I said in the previous question that it is really important for you to first of all understand the KPI and then run the intervention on a pilot group. Because once you are running it on a pilot group, that's when you will realize that when you are evaluating the improvement or the sales volume or the improvement of volume generated after the training intervention, how should you actually approach the whole scenario? Because if you are presenting ROI to business, the business can turn around and very easily say that, okay, you are just giving me a comparative figure quarter by quarter, but how do I know that out of the X amount generated by these employees, this much of percentage was improved purely because of the training? So that is the most, I would say the most confusing part, or the most, that part which actually, because of which most of the people, they are not able to calculate the ROI because they are not trained. But the happy news is, the good news is that you can actually isolate this if you are running the project in a very, very, controlled environment, in a very, very controlled DMAC way of project. So, because what DMAC does, talking about the challenges of actually, calculating the ROI. So, I talked about the formula which we use in calculating the ROI. I also talked about, what are different components in that. And then, I started talking about the challenges which most of the people face, which is basically isolating the improvement purely because of the training, right? So if you are able to solve that, calculating the whole ROI becomes not very difficult. But like I said, you will be able to calculate the ROI only because, if you have ran the whole learning project like a DMAC project, and, you have all the data points available with you. Otherwise, you can consider that ROI, calculation of ROI is going to be a very, very difficult task.
All right. So lastly, any last quote or a thought that you would like to leave us with for the HR fraternity and the young HR managers coming up? Something for them.
Yes, of course. And thanks for asking this question. I think since we talked a lot about ROI and how to, run learning as a project and everything.
Yes.
I think what is really important to be, called out at this stage is that in the whole rigor of calculating the ROI and projects and, money and, hitting the bottom line, I think, we should never forget a very, very simple and very, very foundational fact, which is the people and their whole, mindset.
Yes.
See, and that is, I think that is one of the most important thing for us to, keep in our mind that we are actually dealing with people. We are dealing with, a very, very complex and chaotic bag of behavior. And the ultimate end or the ultimate objective of any project or any intervention that you run is improvement in people.
Yes.
Right. And if you forget, that how people actually adopt that change, because any intervention is going to bring some change in the behavior of people.
Yes.
And people are not going to, change unless you make them participate in the change itself.
Correct.
Right. And I will, give you a very, very small example. Let's say, Tirtha, if I ask you to change your hairstyle,
yes,
on a scale of 1 to 10, how much likely are you to be comfortable with my suggestion?
I think around 5 or 6. It will take some time for me to.
Not very enthusiastic.
Yes. Yeah.
But if you see some, similar hairstyle, which I suggested in a magazine, and you think about it, and then after 6 or 7 months you'll be like, okay, let me give it a shot.
Yes.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how likely is the chance that you are going to be happy with that change, or happy with that decision of yourself?
Much more than I was before. Definitely.
Yeah, much more. And what's the difference between these two situations?
In the first option that you gave, there was not a lot that I was contributing. Whereas in the second one that you said, I could take my own decision and I was able to contribute in the decision making.
Absolutely. And that is the game changer for any change.
Yes.
A very, very simple thought. Any learning intervention or any project or any, change whatsoever, whether L&D or outside of L&D, you've got to involve people in the change. Because unless you forget that, unless you involve people in the decision making, unless you got to have their skin in the game, they will not change. And if they don't change, and I'm talking about at a sustainable level, I'm not talking about changing for like a week or a month or a year, right? Because that is not change. That is a chance incident, right? Unless unless you make them see that what is their stake in the change, they will never improve. And thus and that is where I think most of the learning interventions, they actually collapse. They're not able to make people see that why this change is happening and why is it beneficial, what is their input or what is their stake in that.
Yes.
And that's a tricky part, but that's something which all of us to solve, because we are there, like I said at the beginning of our conversation, that L&D is the interface between business and people, and it is our responsibility to make business understand that this is how you bring change around any learning intervention or any project intervention.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much, sir. Your inputs and your insights will definitely help a lot of people, since our main aim is to help people share and learn together, and your inputs will definitely help a lot of people. So thank you so much for joining us today at HR Success Talk.
Thanks, Deepak. Thanks a lot for this opportunity. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye. Thank you.